Congress voted and President Trump will approve of a plan to stop the federal funding of public broadcasting in America. What this means is that PBS and NPR are going to lose a primary funding source. Tonight we'll go in depth on why the federal government got into broadcasting in the first place and why it's now backing out. Here in Oklahoma, however, the impacts will soon be felt and not just seen, but also heard. With the exception of emergency purposes and educational programming, Congress is pulling the plug on publicly funded broadcasting.
The resolution is adopted.
Here in Tulsa, you know these services as PBS on OETA and NPR on KWGS.
We receive about $155,000 on an average year from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Rich Fisher is the general manager of Public Radio Tulsa.
We'll have to negotiate new music broadcast rights agreements.
He says the funding cuts set to start in October won't knock his stations off the air, but they will have to make adjustments if they can't raise funds last minute to help fill the new hole.
We'll have to close a budget hole, and we're going to do that as best we can with the least effect on the services we provide. But I can't say there won't be cuts to service because 10% is 10% of our budget.
Rich says his station is one of many local NPR stations caught up in a political debate over how national NPR is perceived. It is funded through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, an agency that helps his local station daily.
We're talking music licensing rights, streaming rights. They provide material support for our satellite system. They provide important EAS emergency alerting.
Over at OETA, the cuts won't necessarily clip Big Bird's wings, but the 10 to 12% cut will also hurt.
Now we've got to think, okay, well, we don't have this $1.5 million, $2 million. We won't have that. So what are we going to do instead? Where can we make cuts? Does this affect personnel? Our short-term game is fine. If it's longer term, we'll have to just look at it like that.
Ken Busby sits on the Friends of OETA board that helps raise money for the state's PBS affiliate. He says the board pleaded with Oklahoma's congressional delegation to preserve as much funding as they could. Ken says because a lot of OETA's funding comes from the state of Oklahoma and corporate and private sponsors, OETA will stay afloat, but programming and operational cuts will need to happen if they too can't raise enough money to fill the new funding hole.
I think the thing that hurts the most is, we're all for avoiding waste, fraud, and abuse. We're all understanding the needs that are identified like that. But we are a lean, trim machine. We just don't have places to cut like that.
Ken says in the past, state lawmakers have been supportive of funding OETA because it has wholesome programming available to every corner of the state and serves a critical purpose with emergency alerts. With OETA being one of the highest-rated PBS stations in the country, he says it shows the station is worth every penny paid into it.
From the financial standpoint, we're trying to be above politics and saying, we're here for the constituents. We're here for our viewers. We're here to provide a service, education, safety, all of those things. So we're staying focused on that.
One of the reasons Republicans were so eager to make these cuts is because of what has been happening at the National Public Radio's headquarters main newsroom in Washington, D.C. Over the years, the content from national NPR has shifted left and even started to take on a woke tone in some of their reporting. Staffers who leaned Republican left the building and openly said they felt they were no longer considered valuable or heard. And as you'll hear in this congressional testimony with the head of NPR from 3 months ago, there are claims that publicly funded editorial decisions were being made by people who solely aligned with the Democratic Party.
You're a rabid progressive. And do you not think it's a problem that your political leanings make it seem to the American people that you're not biased and that you're not doing your job? Because you agree that your job is to have journalistic integrity, right?
Absolutely, but there is a strong firewall between the newsroom and anything that I
Let's talk about the newsroom. You have 87 registered Democrats, not a single Republican in your editor board. So, how does that work to give us the perception that you're doing your job of actually delivering unbiased information?
Well, I would agree with you that number is a concern if it is accurate. I do believe that we need to have journalists who represent the full breadth of the American society so that we can report well for all Americans.
Well, I think that you are failing. I realize you've only been there for a year, but I just really think that while it is a small portion of your budget, you very much should expect to restructure your revenue streams, because I don't think that NPR is necessarily worth saving.
Something that will be interesting to see play out at the state capitol next year is, will state lawmakers try to rescue OETA again? In 2023, Governor Kevin Stitt said it was time to cut off all state funds to OETA, saying its programming was, quote, woke indoctrination.
It may have had its place in 1957. Why are we spending taxpayer dollars to prop up the OETA?
Now, the governor's veto of OETA's funding was overridden by state lawmakers that year, who said OETA's educational programming was good for families across the state, and the entire network was critical when it comes to sending out emergency alerts and communicating with all areas of the state at the same time. In recent years, state lawmakers have actually spent millions of dollars updating the infrastructure of OETA to make sure it stays online for years to come. We will see if state lawmakers fill all or part of the budget gap, but also keep in mind, because of multiple DOGE policies coming out of D.C., the state is also on the hook for more Medicaid, SNAP, and disaster response costs as well. If you like what you see on PBS and here on your local NPR station, it is now on you more than ever to lift them up with your own personal donations. You are going to see heavy fundraising drives to try to fill this gap. Your donations are tax deductible and can help lower your tax bill next spring. And starting in 2026, keep this in mind, the Big Beautiful Bill will give you a new $1,000 tax credit for people who donate to charity and take the standard deduction instead of itemizing. It won't kick in for 2025, but it does start next year. Before we take a break, I want you to listen to a powerful piece of testimony from Capitol Hill. It didn't happen this year. It happened 56 years ago. Fred Rogers, known to many as simply Mr. Rogers, laid out a vision for public broadcasting in this country. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood started out on a station just like Fox 23 and was airing on just a few stations that bought his program. But there was a feeling that this was needed nationwide. He went to Capitol Hill on May 1st, 1969, seeking $20 million for a channel that is more than just sex, drugs, and violence for entertainment and exists in a world that is more than just the constant struggle for money. A channel that is good for families and helps them raise their children. Yes, we could argue for hours about how this vision lost its way and may have even gone to the grave with Fred Rogers. But to an extent, when it comes to programming on PBS and on OETA that Mr. Rogers laid the foundation for, this standard continues today. But this is what is now at risk of being lost to many.
And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health. I think that it's much more dramatic that two men could be working out their feelings of anger, much more dramatic than showing something of gunfire. I'm constantly concerned about what our children are seeing. And for 15 years, I have tried in this country and Canada to present what I feel is a meaningful expression of care.
Do you narrate it?
I'm the host, yes. And I do all the puppets, and I write all the music, and I write all the script.
Well, I'm supposed to be a pretty tough guy, and this is the first time I've had goosebumps for the last 2 days.
Well, I'm grateful not only for your goosebumps, but for your interest in our kind of communication. Could I tell you the words of one of the songs which I feel is very important?
Yes.
This has to do with that good feeling of control, which I feel that children need to know is there. And it starts out, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And that first line came straight from a child. I work with children, doing puppets in very personal communication with small groups. What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right. What do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think this song. I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop, stop, stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this. and know that the feeling is really mine, know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.